Hey everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique. I'm Christy Wright, and today I'm sharing with you part 2 of my interview with Jessica Honegger. Now, if you missed part 1, you want to go back and watch that first, but you do not want to miss this amazing story of how she built her business that is making a global impact. Check it out.
God is looking for co-creators, for cultivators, but we don't have to do it by ourselves. We get to partner with the creator of the universe. I mean, there's so much joy in that. And when we step forward, you know, God will always show up. Will the resources always show up? Will the people, I mean, that's not completely guaranteed.
Right.
God will always show up though.
Right.
And there's a lot of courage that comes from that, from, you know, knowing that we can't completely control an outcome, but we can influence an outcome and we can surrender the results and not put our identity in the outcome. Because I think so many women, I mean, in so many ways, I think ignorance is bliss, right? Like, I think a lot of women now, because there's so much information available, people stay in analysis paralysis, where they think they can't say yes until. And that's what I love about our messages, because it really is about just getting up and going and having a bias towards action. And that's how we learn. That's where God demonstrates his showing up. You know, like, sure, he shows up for you when you're sitting on your prayer chair, but let me tell you, transformation happens when you get up and walk.
Yes. And I love that you said something a second ago too, where you said, I'm not afraid to ask. And even the word that you just used of co-creators, of co-cultivators, that if you don't ask, you don't get. You know? And so the fact that you're willing to ask, God is showing up and providing, but you're the one that showed up and said, I need help here. I need resources here. I need answer. You know, I have spoken at some events. I've spoken at a lot of events, but it seems like there's a theme. This is a generalization, Jessica, but there's a theme in the Christian world where it's a lot of what you were kind of describing on the couch of like, I'm just waiting for God to show me. I'm just waiting for God to give me the answer. I'm waiting for God to give me the plan, the money. I'm waiting for God to take my fears away. I'm waiting for God to show me my passion and purpose on this planet. I'm like, sister, get moving. God's going to show you in doing, and God can turn a moving car. He can't turn a stalled vehicle. So like, get that car going.
Get it moving.
And your entire story is an example of everything you have accomplished to this day, of how successful and the impact is a result of you learning as you go. You wouldn't be learning if you didn't go.
No, and I definitely had many moments, but my biggest moment where I felt stuck on my prayer chair. And I knew that I was in a sink or swim moment. It had been about a year. We were about to go get Jack. The business was taking off. We had 8 ambassadors, which means I had multiplied myself in just like a month's time. So things were taking off. My husband was helping with like finances and stuff, but he was still like scrapping away trying to like earn a living for our family because the business wasn't profitable yet. We'd saved the money for the adoption. We'd gotten that, and then everything else we were just putting back into the business. And I thought, okay, this is either going to be a scalable business or it's going to be a side hustle.
Jessica, when I was doing research for Business Boutique, like years ago, I just studied all these women, and I did phone interviews with them. I did focus groups with them. I did surveys with them, and the themes were glaring. Like they all said the same thing in different varying ways, and I was like, I know them. Like I felt like I just knew them. And still do. It's still true to this day. We still built the brand based on that research. But one of the things that occurred was I identified this kind of process they go through in starting a business. And not unlike yours, they start doing something and it kind of turns, and some of them it's intentional, but many of them it's accidental. That it becomes a business like, oh, I guess I could make money at this. Kind of feel like, I guess.
Like I was just solving a need.
I guess I could do this. I thought I was just making that little dress for my friend's sister's baby shower. Like, so they have this aha moment. And they go into this stage of experimenting where it's like, I'm going to buy a website and set up Western Union. And, you know, they just are experimenting. Logos, business cards, making stuff up. Just throwing stuff against the wall. But then very quickly after that, what happens is so many of them hit a wall. And I call it the wall of overwhelm. And what happens there in this process is that overwhelm replaces their initial excitement. And they have more questions than answers. And what happens at this wall is they take one of 2 paths. And path 1 is they get help. They don't become perfect at this wall. They get help, get answers, solutions, and they get over the wall and they reach their dreams and they reach their goals and build their business. The other group takes path 2. They don't get help. They give up They resolved to keep it a hobby. Well, I was never cut out for business anyway. Well, I guess this was a bad idea in the first place. See, I told you it would never work.
Yep.
And they justify it. And they let that dream die. And the only difference between those that take path 1 and those that take path 2 is the fact that they got help.
Yes.
And I just love that example because you are CEO of this incredibly successful organization that's making an impact all over the world, literally. And it's not because you had to become something that you're not.
It's true.
You just got help. And there's no shame in that. There's incredible wisdom in that. And you've been able to still be faithful to your calling and your gifts that God has given you. God charged you with these good works.
Yes.
and then provided the help that you needed. And I just love that. That's such a great example of that. Just getting help.
It's so interesting that is clearly the research, because my book kind of takes people through this path of like owning your worth, owning your idea, owning that you have something to bring to the world. And then the part 2 of the book is about going it together. I know there's this term solopreneur, but you're not going to do anything solo in life and actually make it. And there's this line in my book where I say, you might think that you have reached a wall, but look up because there's people that are ready to throw you the rope.
I love that. I love that visual.
I love the visual because you see the wall and then suddenly it's like, help, the rope is going to come over. I promise you that there is someone in your life that wants to show up for you. And that's the thing, is like we get to offer this gift then, because people love to rally around passion and helping other people's dreams. It's so much fun. I love it. And so, when I think about that, like if I'm holding back, then I'm actually robbing something from someone else. And I think so many women are others focused and find a lot of value through meeting other people's needs. And it's like, well, if you need to reframe that to get going, then like go for it, you know? But like if you hold back, you're ultimately holding back other people.
Yes.
And I think that that's a really powerful concept.
Yeah, everyone loses when you don't step into your gifts. But when you do, everyone wins. It starts with you asking for help, like, hey, I need help. And you won't always get a yes. And that's okay.
But I think you have to look for the story that confirms that you're going to get a yes.
Okay, what do you mean? Let's explain that. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think a lot of us have this bias of scarcity. Like,
for sure.
No one is going to show up for us. People are going to say no's. And then I think that we build a story. We confirm that negative story. And then we miss out on, you know what? I'm going to confirm the story today of the bias that God's going to show up for me and that people are showing up for me and that there is a yes.
Right.
And then I think that makes you actually receive the yes when it comes, I also
you look for it more.
You look for it.
Expecting
look for the yes. Expect the yes, And I also think as far as seeking out mentorship, I think too it's really powerful, the question of, Christy, is there anything I can do to support you? You've asked me that.
Right,
it's such a powerful story, but I think people think that if they are younger or whatever, that they don't have anything to offer, like a more seasoned person.
Right.
But I love the attitude of being able to come alongside, like, is there anything I can support you in or help you in? And I think that's a great way to start a relationship as well.
Yeah, I love that. And it really does take courage to make that ask. But
it does.
I love the idea of the bias, because if you have a narrative in your mind, then you are always, and this is a psychological truth, you are always looking for things in your world to confirm your narrative. You're not looking for things to prove you wrong, right? Like we're looking for ways to be right.
Right.
All of us.
Right.
And so make sure to check, this is a lot of Brene Brown stuff, but make sure to check that story.
Yeah.
Make sure to check that narrative, because that narrative is driving what you're looking for.
Because you can build evidence for either story.
That's exactly right.
So which do you want to build for, Because I think our biggest obstacle really is our limiting beliefs and our mindset.
That's right.
And that's so empowering, because we have control over that.
Right. I love, so Rachel Hollis, who introduced us, when she was on my podcast and she sat in the seat, she said, I'm just so sick of the story that I have to choose between being an awesome mom or an awesome business owner. She goes, I reject that story. She goes, the new story is I'm awesome at both.
Yes.
She goes, I'm an awesome mom and I'm an awesome business owner. I was like, I love that so much. And so I've told that like a million times. I was like, I'm adopting that story. So it's not the implication of which one are you failing at today?
No.
What are we going to miss out on today? Where is someone not going to show up today? It's, I know they're going to show up, so now I'm just looking for them to show up, because the story is good and positive and expectant.
Yes.
Yeah.
I even found myself the other day, I was walking past a mirror and I was just like, Jess, like you put on some weight. Oh. And I just stopped and I looked back and I said, Jess, you're gorgeous.
There you go.
And I just think that we have that power to flip that. We have the power, and we're just like, I haven't spent enough time with the kids. And I've been
always focusing on what we're not doing. Always.
What if we said like, man, I am an awesome mom.
That's right.
My kids delight in me.
That's right.
I watched a movie with them this week, and I went swimming that time when they asked me to swim with them.
I love this. Focusing on everything you did do.
Yes, and celebrate it.
That's right.
You know, effort over outcome, right?
That's right.
And I know oftentimes as ambitious women, as go-getters, we are constantly thinking about the next thing, which keeps us from stopping and being in the present and really celebrating what we do have.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to celebrate what we do have in order to keep living into the more.
Right.
Because otherwise you're living out of scarcity.
Right,
Again,
always.
it goes back to that mindset of having that growth mindset and not seeing so many things as black and white, good or bad. I can be a good mom or a bad mom, good CTO or this. I can do this or this. But there's this and paradox. You know, I say hashtag choosing and. And I just think that when we see those things, like I can love macaroni and cheese and I can drink kombucha and be healthy. You know what I mean? There's so many ands in our lives. And I think when we can embrace those tensions and kind of get rid of this dichotic way of thinking, there's just a lot more freedom. When we see ourselves as these co-creators and in this relationship, you know, we're in this living and active relationship with God.
And it's amazing too, because regardless of your circumstance, regardless of your kid's mood that day, regardless of how much you weigh or how you look or what you're wearing, you can always focus on the lack. Or you could always focus on what you do have. You know, I got in a really bad habit, Jessica, of every time I would get ready for the day, I would leave my bathroom and I would say to myself the same thing every day. This will have to do. And I was like, that is so one day I felt God say to me, I want you to write this on your mirror. And I wrote on my mirror, stop being mean to yourself. And it's just like, it's like, this will have to, like, it was just like, oh, I guess this is, you know, and it doesn't really matter what you look like or what you ate. You can always focus on life, or you can be like, God, thank you that I feel good. Thank you that I'm healthy. Thank you that my kids are snuggling with me over movies. And that's just a good word for moms, that you have the choice to give into the guilt, or you have the choice to live in freedom and say, I'm doing an awesome job. And I'm going to highlight and celebrate and fist pump and high five all the awesome things that I have done this week. And I'm not going to allow that story to be my story.
I think that we have that story because it is doing something for us. So it's like, what is that accomplishing for you? And I know for me, the story behind the want, like, oh gosh, if I was just 10 pounds lighter, or if I just had like this much more, many followers on Instagram, if I was getting invited to this, whatever it might be, if I just had that, what? Like, what's the blank that you're filling in? And I would challenge listeners to, is that really true? You know, because I think there is no point of arrival.
You never get there. You never say, I've made it.
Get there. And I think for me, well, if I was skinnier, then I would be more accepted and I would find a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
That is not true. That is not where my sense of belonging comes from. If I had this much success, I wouldn't have to, you know, put quite as much effort into work. It wouldn't feel as stressful. That's not true. These are just escapist mentalities that keep your energy drained and not focusing on what you have and then what you have to offer. Because, you know, when you are able to just embrace, like, man, this is what I have to give. I was made with an impact. I have a voice. You just become others focused in this way that just lifts others up. I mean, other people just want to be around that. You know, when you are a magnet, when you are able to live out of that place of abundance, other people just want to come alongside you. And that's really what you're wanting anyway. Right? And so I think it is so powerful to know that your most limiting thing that you bring to your business is you. And the most powerful thing you bring to your business is you. And it's your mindset. And when you can take power over that mindset, then I believe that is when the rubber hits the road and you have fun. So it's also not about just like going after it, but it's going after it in freedom and fun and faith and joy, right? Enjoying the journey along the way.
I love that. And Jessica, you're such a great example of that. Like, just not only your business and your story, but you embody all of that. So even though you teach it on your Going Scared podcast, you also live it. And I think people get that authenticity because you're a living, breathing model of that. And you do such a great job. Before we wrap up, I want to hear about your book that just came out. So tell me about it. A book is a big deal. This is so exciting. Tell me all about it.
Gosh, a book is a big deal. It's so great. When I was in my Uber coming over here, and he's like, so what do you do? And I kind of said, like, I don't often say, I said, I'm an author. It was so weird. And then he was like, that is a big deal. That's so great. You just launched your first book. Way to go. And I was like, Thank you. Again, because I don't have the tendency to celebrate. I have the tendency to be like, I'm already thinking about what my next book is going to be.
Right.
That's ridiculous, you know? So I wrote this book because I love to catalyze courage in other women, because I have been stuck on the couch. I can still struggle with being stuck on the couch. And so I really want to take women by the hand and help them to live a life of purpose by leaving comfort and going scared.
I love it.
And instead of spending our energy on buying bubble wrap and insulating our lives
it's a good visual.
against suffering, against otherness, against risk, let's rip it off, because the only thing that money can buy is bubble wrap. And life is not just about acquiring comfort through money, through Instagram scrolling, through food, whatever else where you might find comfort, but life is really about leaving that comfort and finding your purpose and just simply going scared. And so
I love it. So what's the title of the book?
Imperfect Courage.
Okay.
Yep. So it's all about how we don't have it all together.
Okay. Of the things I teach on stage at Business Boutique, the thing that connects the most, it's literally taken on a life of its own, is do it scared. It's like everyone thinks you have to not be scared to do it.
Yes.
And when you start to say, oh no, you do it while you're scared, they're like, think of what I can do.
Yes.
I'm scared and I can do
and
all
I
these
can.
things.
And
That's right.
I'm scared and I can.
That's right.
I always thought courage was this word that felt reserved for Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and the firefighters of 9/11. And I actually never really related to that word courage. Actually, almost when people, even when Brene Brown, who, by the way, endorses my book, she's on the cover.
Oh my gosh.
So her work has transformed my life.
Right.
But even at the beginning of her work around courage, I'd be like, really? Courage is just like sharing with a friend something that you've never shared before? Because I held courage up on this pedestal, but I had a faulty definition of courage. Courage is simply being scared and going anyway.
Doing it anyway.
And so that's where the imperfect part comes from. Is just like, you can't wait until you're courageous. Like, that doesn't exist. Like, you only get courage by the going and by the doing and growing those courage muscles, just like you go to the gym and you build up endurance. Like, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about the message, and the book is awesome. You're going to love it.
Oh, I can't wait. I love it. It's so just my heartbeat around pushing past your fear. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, nothing will silence your fear like doing the thing. Yeah. You know, it's like get out there and do the thing. And it's in so doing that courage is created. I love it. Okay, people want to know how they can find the book and connect with you. So as we wrap up, be sure to tell them, social media, where can they find Noonday, and where can they find the book, Imperfect Courage?
So Imperfect Courage is available everywhere books are sold, Target, Amazon, your local bookstore, and I'm a big Instagram girl. I know you are too.
Yes.
And so you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I've got a great email list where I just really want to encourage others. And then Noonday Collection is noondaycollection.com, and you can become an ambassador. You can open up your home. It's just such a great way to bridge suffering of the world with beauty,
I love it.
And that's what I love that we get to do, is you get to invite your friends over, have a party, and get to share these stories and use your purchasing power to create change. So you can host a trunk show through Noonday Collection, and then read my book, Imperfect Courage, and then the Going Scared podcast, which you've been a guest on. So you all should go listen to that episode, because you can never get enough Christy Wright, I have to say. I'm serious.
They're probably like, I think I can.
No, you can't. You really can't.
It's so fun. And, Jessica, you and I could talk for days. I just love it because we really do have such a heart for the same messages about this. And I think, one of the things I tell women all the time, especially if you're doing something even remotely similar to someone else, there's such power in women championing women.
Yes.
So I love that you get that from even being around you, the people that we have in common as friends, but to be that model of like, lifting each other up, championing each other.
When we all do it together, it's like we change the whole current. I mean, it is swimming upstream. It's interesting. We're in Inc. magazine right now, the founding story, How I Built It.
Yes, I saw this. Yeah, amazing.
And then I just did an interview for Forbes, and the interview, they've been so the message they're most drawn into the book is the collaborative piece, the women being for women, because there still is such a reputation of women and behavior among women where we can have this tendency to bring each other down. But I believe as we all decide that her success doesn't diminish mine, we swim upstream, we change the current. It's interesting because I've surrounded myself with so many women with that mentality now that it's been interesting for me as I interview with people that maybe are just hearing our story for the first time, that's the part that's really sticking out to them. And that's exciting to me, because I think, as these messages take off, then I think we're going to change the trajectory of how women support one another in the world.
Well, I love that too, because it goes back to what we were saying a minute ago. You're really just changing the narrative. You're like, I'm not going to participate in that. Here's the one I'm participating in. Oh,
Exactly.
Jessica, I love you. I just am so grateful for you. I know you're busy. You've got your leadership conference going on. There's all these fun things, and you're so busy, especially with your book coming out or having just come out. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks for
hanging out with our Business Boutique audience, and we'll have to have you back soon. Thanks for being here.
I would love to.
Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you have a question about something going on in your business or anything we've talked about here on the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can give me a call at 844-944-1074. So give me a call. I'd love to answer your question.